Welcome to the Bogosity podcast for the 14th of April 2014, the podcast that dispels the myths and myth spells the dis. This is your host, Shane Killian, and joining me again this week is Jakob Morris. Jacob, welcome back to the show.
Hello.
So let's obsolete the news of the bogus. And you're a Mac user, Jacob, so I don't know how familiar you are with this, but there's a lot of talk going around about what happened this past Tuesday. That's April 8th, which is known as Patch Tuesday to Windows users being the second Tuesday of the month.
Yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, what Microsoft does is they take all of their updates and everything and they save them and give them to you all at once on the second Tuesday of the month, as opposed to just harassing you with them all the time, because almost all of them make you reboot the machine.
Yeah, that sounds nice.
And they've been doing that for a while. But the thing is, this last Patch Tuesday was the last update for Windows XP. So they'll still be updating Vista 7, 8, and 8.1, but they're cutting you off if it's XP. So that means no more security updates, and there's a lot of bogosity going around. There is a big potential problem in this because XP shares a code base with Windows 7 and 8. And so what that means is when they fix a vulnerability in Windows 7 or Windows 8, it's probably there in XP, but since XP's not patched, the vulnerability's there, and now the hackers know about it. But it's actually not as bad as people are making it sound. I mean, you can protect yourself, and we'll go over how to do that, but they're just going all crazy and calling it the X-pocalypse or XP-ocalypse. I'm not sure how they're pronouncing that, but it's kind of like Y2K all over again. I don't know if you remember that.
I remember watching a Family Guy episode of it.
Yeah, I mean, the idea was that when the year 2000 rolled around, all sorts of computers would crash, and the computer in your car would make the airbags go off and crap like that. So there's all sorts of things. Like, for example, a lot of ATMs are running XP. And so they're saying, oh, these will be vulnerable. But a lot of these vulnerabilities are about you pulling up Internet Explorer and going to websites and playing videos in Flash, which you don't do at an ATM.
Although my bank does use the ATM as an arcade machine sometimes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're going to have to stop that.
But I think the biggest bogosity is for Microsoft themselves, because you know what? They're still updating Windows XP. You just can't get the updates unless you've purchased a volume license from them.
What's a volume license?
That's where you have like thousands and thousands of computers, and so you pay one huge chunk of money to them, and it ends up being, I think, like $200 per PC. So like all the big banks and all the big companies that are running XP, they'll still get the updates. It's just, the little people, the plebes, they don't deserve the updates. I mean, I think that's a really bad thing because, I mean, at least the security updates, plugging the security holes, if you're making them anyway, I think it's irresponsible not to send them down. According to Netcraft, 27.7% of PCs that are up and running and on the internet are still running XP. And I see it kind of like vaccination. It's not just about protecting them, you're protecting everyone they connect to. So brickbats to Microsoft on that, but I'm just going to give you a few pointers if you're still using XP, how to keep it safe. You can still install all of the available updates up to April the 8th. They'll still be around. There just aren't going to be any new ones released, so make sure you're up to date as far as you can. You'll still be able to update your applications, so keep your antivirus and anti-malware up to date. A big thing is don't run as an administrator, which is the default. The user that automatically gets set up in Windows XP is an administrator. What you want to do is run as a limited user, and the reason why is that when malware gets into your computer, it can only do what you can. So if you're an administrator, it can go wherever it wants to. If you're a limited user, you can really stop it in its tracks there. So I have a link to PC Magazine that teaches you how to set up a limited user. But I think what you'll probably want to do, you'll probably want to keep all the software and My Documents that you've been using. So you'll want to keep that user profile. So what you'd want to do is follow that procedure, only when you create the user, create an administrator, then log into that administrator, and you go to that same place, select your existing user, and turn that into a limited user. And that way you'll have the administrative user that's there whenever you need to install software or whatever, but for the most part you'll be running as a limited user. If you do this one thing, then you would be protected from over 90% of the malware attacks in 2013. Just that one thing. Something else you can do is switch to Chrome and never even open Internet Explorer again. And the nice thing about Chrome is it not only keeps itself up to date, it runs its own version of Adobe Flash, and it keeps it updated as well, and it keeps it sandboxed, so if there's another bug in Flash is one of the big problems with this. Chrome will keep it updated, and it'll keep it sandboxed so it can't go outside and get into your system and do that. And also, Chrome has a built-in PDF reader, and the Adobe reader for PDFs is another big problem. So all you have to do is install Chrome and use that, then uninstall Flash in the Adobe reader. And also secure your passwords with LastPass. And I know we've talked about this a lot, but Chrome has a big vulnerability with its password database, and especially without the updates. Definitely get LastPass, put it on there, and have your passwords in LastPass instead of Chrome. And probably just needs to bear mentioning again, and this applies to everyone, everywhere, on every system. Never click links in email or open attachments, because that's a big way they get you.
Very important.
But if you do all that, you should be safe. You should be able to continue running XP without having to upgrade. I mean, it does seem kind of like extortion, doesn't it? Like, we're going to make you upgrade or you won't get any security updates. I don't know. But if you make sure you do those things, then you should be able to keep running XP and keep enjoying it. Hackers, terrorists, the NSA. But I repeat myself. Your online security is under attack, and the weakest point is your password. That's why you need LastPass. LastPass plugs into your browser and allows you to randomly generate strong, unique passwords anywhere on the web, all protected by one master password. LastPass sets up in minutes and gives you secure automatic logins throughout the web, synchronizing across all your browsers and all your computers, at home, at work, or on the road. It even securely stores sensitive form data, including credit card numbers, backup sensitive documents, membership info, Wi-Fi logins, and more. And with LastPass Premium, you can get these benefits on other applications and even mobile devices, and also get priority customer support. Sign up at password.bogosity.tv for a free month of LastPass Premium. Log in securely everywhere using the last password you'll ever have to remember. Go to password.bogosity.tv and get LastPass now. Alright, more Bogosity from the Bitcoin world. And this is something we've all been waiting for. The IRS has weighed in. They've declared Bitcoin to be property, not money. And so what that means is when you get Bitcoin and when you go onto the exchange and you sell it and you trade it in for dollars, or you go to a website and buy something with it, it's just like buying and selling any commodity. You have to keep track of how much Bitcoin was worth when you bought it. And this is directly from the IRS's notice. Quote, taxpayers will be required to determine the fair market value of virtual currency in U.S. dollars as of the date of payment or receipt.
Good on them.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the problem. How do you determine what the fair market value is? You know, pretty much what you have to do is you have to keep track of all of your Bitcoin transactions and how much Bitcoin was worth at the time. And so if you get Bitcoins, if you buy Bitcoins, or if you mine Bitcoins, you have to keep track of that. And then when you go to sell the Bitcoins or to exchange them for a product or service online, then you have to look at that. And if in the interim the value of Bitcoins has risen, then you have to pay capital gains tax on that.
Yeah, that sounds like a you problem.
And this is also true for mining Bitcoin. Quote, when a taxpayer successfully mines virtual currency, the fair market value of the virtual currency as of the date of receipt is includable in gross income. And that also means it's subject to the self-employment tax. And by the way, it applies retroactively. So now you have to go back with all your previous transactions, figure it out.
Well, they just love to bleed us, don't they?
Well, it's not just bleeding us. I mean, imagine if you make a lot of Bitcoin transactions, you know, the price of Bitcoin can vary by several dollars a day and vary based on the exchange. So when you're going back and trying to figure out how much it was and how much you paid for it, and what if the IRS looks at it, comes to a different figure than you and says, aha, you didn't pay us enough.
So it's more like dismemberment then.
Pretty much. Well, it's just more regulatory burden, making you sit down and do lots of paperwork. So, To make it even more confusing, FinCEN, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, is calling it a currency. So, when you're doing all your bookkeeping for tax purposes, you have to treat it like a commodity. But when you're keeping all of your records, so like if the SEC wants to go over what you have, there you have to treat it like a currency. So now you've got to do it two different ways at the same time.
Now I'm getting annoyed.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, make up your mind, guys. Well, here's what Joe Henchman of the Tax Foundation had to say about it. Quote, ideally, they should choose one or the other, but it sounds like they're going to get the worst of both worlds. It makes it undesirable to conduct transactions using Bitcoin. When you buy or sell something with PayPal, credit, or cash, you're not keeping track of what the monetary value is relative to a base currency.
Do you think they might be doing this deliberately?
I don't know. That's what a lot of people are saying, but I think that's probably giving them a little too much credit. I think they just don't understand Bitcoin and don't know what they're doing. And so they're just kind of making it up as they go along.
Yeah, that just sounds more plausible.
Yeah. But, I mean, that's going to be the effect of it. They're making it harder and harder to do business with Bitcoin. All right, this next story is another one we were waiting for. A man was arrested and had his car searched for marijuana solely because he had a Colorado license plate.
Are you saying I can't have the dandy new Colorado plate order?
Yeah, I guess that's illegal in some states. Well, of course, what happened is, we've talked about this, Colorado has legalized marijuana, and so 70-year-old Darian Rosine was driving down I-84 in Idaho, and he was pulled over by Idaho State Trooper Justin Klitsch when he pulled over to go into a rest area. And the car he was driving had Colorado plates. And so what Klitsch told him was, quote, you didn't have to go to the bathroom before you saw me. I'm telling you, you pulled in here to avoid me. So apparently taking an exit to a rest area now means you're avoiding the police.
Oh boy. Sounds like more excuses.
Yeah. And he kept asking him things like why his eyes appeared glassy. But he didn't ask for proof of insurance or registration. He didn't go back to his police vehicle to verify Rosine's license. But he did ask, quote, when is the last time you used any marijuana? And have you stopped beating your wife?
Now that's just insensitive.
I mean...
It's like statist, kind of. Like racist, but against people from certain states.
Oh, yeah, I get it. Not like the normal word statist we've been using, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's that too, though.
Yeah. Anti-Colorado.
Coloradoist. And Washingtonist.
Klitsch kept wanting to search his car, and Rosine refused. And so Klitsch said that was, quote, consistent with a person who was hiding something illegal.
I'm wagging my finger at this.
Okay, well, let's think about this. Not wanting him to search his car is consistent with a person who's hiding something illegal. Well, it stands to reason that a person who's hiding something illegal wouldn't want the policeman to search his car, but that's not the only reason why you wouldn't want the police to search your car. You know, you look at, say, okay, this and that and that and this, these are consistent with people doing something wrong. But I mean, if you're going to use that as a criteria, consistent with a person who's hiding something illegal, that's only valid if it's inconsistent with a person who's not hiding something illegal, and they keep leaving that part out.
Yeah, maybe they got some stuff they don't want you to see that's not illegal, just embarrassing.
Yeah. Or they just don't want to be bothered with you rooting through their car. They value their privacy or whatever.
Yeah, that too.
So finally, Rosine consented to a search of his vehicle just so he could get this over with. So he opened the trunk, and then Klitsch claimed he smelled marijuana. Now, I think you've probably guessed by now there's no marijuana in the car.
Oh, but he claimed they did.
Yeah.
Air quotes.
Yeah, so he called in another police officer, and Rosine was arrested. And actually, he was told he wasn't under arrest, even though he was detained in the back of Klitsch's vehicle and been read his Miranda rights. But he wasn't under arrest. Like I said, they didn't find any marijuana or anything else, and Rosine was finally cited for inattentive and careless driving.
Oh.
Yeah, because he pulled off into an exit and had Colorado plates. So anyway, Rosine's suing in federal court, so best of luck to him on that. He's claiming that the Idaho State Police violated his 4th, 5th, and 14th Amendment rights, and the complaint says, quote, at no point did Trooper Klitsch's line of questioning relate to Mr. Rosine's alleged improper driving pattern. Instead, Trooper Klitsch immediately accused Mr. Rosine of transporting something illegal. And his attorney, Mark Kuntz, said, quote, "We believe that Americans should be able to travel interstate highways without being harassed and unlawfully detained because of license plate profiling." See, there's a new one for you, license plate profiling.
Oh yeah, I'm going to write that one down.
Our client, Mr. Rosine, is a 70-year-old retiree who was returning from his daughter's baby shower. He was stopped in Idaho and deprived of his constitutional rights because he was driving a car with a license plate from a state that Idaho State Police associated with marijuana.
When shall we see our baby showers without being unmolested again?
You say you don't like Bitcoin? Why not? Oh, because it's not gold. No problem. Just go to coins.bogosity.tv and you'll be taken to Coinable, where you can buy gold or silver coins or bars with your Bitcoins, with literally up-to-the-minute spot pricing. Now there's no reason not to jump on the Bitcoin bandwagon. Whether you're a Bitcoin miner, service operator, Bitcoin business owner, or market speculator, you can get gold and silver from reputable dealers. And Coinable has Bitcoin liquidity for fast processing of your order. Coinable even utilizes a special shipping infrastructure to ensure that your investment arrives safely at your door. And you know what? By going to coins.bogosity.tv, you won't pay a penny more, a Satoshi more for your purchase. But you'll help this podcast. You can even sell your gold and silver for Bitcoin as well. Coinable is your Bitcoin to gold marketplace. So go to coins.bogosity.tv and start turning your Bitcoins into gold now. Alright, so the news is abuzz with another recent Supreme Court decision. Guess what? It was 5-4. And this one is McCutcheon versus FEC. And it's pretty much the same Bogosity from the same people as the Citizens United decision.
Is it, we love the First Amendment, except for the parts we don't like?
Exactly. Well, here's the horrible thing that this decision did. All right, it just made it so that rich people can just buy up candidates all they want, and of course everyone else has less of a choice.
How is that different from before?
Well, okay, before, you could only donate $2,600 to an individual candidate, that was your cap, $32,400 to a national party committee, and $5,000 to a political action committee, and that was in one election cycle. Okay, so before it was $2,600 to candidates, $32,400 to national parties, and $5,000 to PACs. After McCutcheon, now you can donate as much as $2,600 to individual candidates, $32,400 to national party candidates, and $5,000 to political action committees. Oh, wait. That's the same. $2,600 and then $2,600. $3,200 before, $3,200. They're all the same.
Yeah.
What are they talking about? Well, this is the first thing that people don't understand. It's that word aggregate. Because there were also aggregate caps, which meant that all total, you could give $48,600 to all candidates as a whole. All right, so you could give to 18 candidates and then have $1,800 left over to give to a 19th candidate, or you could give $486 to 100 candidates, or however you wanted to break it up. All right, but you could still just give $2,600 to individual candidates. Now, those caps are gone because they were found to be a violation of the First Amendment guarantees of free speech. So now you can give as much as you want to candidates, but you can still only give $2,600 to individual candidates. And then for PACs and parties, the cap was $74,600. That's gone too, so now you can give as much as you want, but the individual limits are still there. So everyone's jumping on the bandwagon about, oh, this is bad, this is huge, this is, just gonna make it open up for the rich, and no, it's not. It just makes it easier to fund challengers so that they can put up more of a defense against the incumbents. That's the only thing that all these campaign limitations and everything do. They make it harder for challengers to take down incumbents. And people say things like, oh, well, that's just going to make the incumbents more entrenched. And, well, look at it. The incumbents got more entrenched after all these campaign finance laws started being passed. And the more they passed, the more entrenched they got. Yeah, so you have like Policy Mike, for example, that said, quote, most people don't have this type of spending money, which is why the implications of this case are so important. Opponents of this decision will essentially argue that we've gifted the outcome of elections to the wealthy, those who can afford to drop loads of cash to ensure that a specific candidate or ideology or platform wins. The influence of money in politics has always been an issue. Now the Supreme Court has effectively opened the floodgates on how much money can be spent on a candidate to help that person win. No, they haven't. The amount you can give to one candidate is still limited at $2,600.
It's the McCutcheon apocalypse. Dogs and cats living together in mass hysteria.
But this does bring us nicely into that rarest of events. We'll probably have more eclipses this year. Yes, we've got another recipient of the Silver Cluon Award.
Hooray.
And this time it goes to James Wilson and Perry Willis of downsizedc.org. And they wrote a short article called Money Isn't Speech. And this is just everything needed for the Silver Cluon. It's short, it's easy to understand, and it's a complete knockdown argument. So I'll just read the whole thing. Quote, the Supreme Court has ruled in McCutcheon v. Federal Election Commission, contributions to individual candidates remain limited, but the total of combined contributions to individual candidates is no longer capped. Combined limits violate the freedom of speech. But those who favor campaign finance limits cry foul under the slogan, money isn't speech. After all, the machine through which Stephen Hawking speaks clearly required no money to build or program. It never needs maintenance. It just magically appeared and will run forever. Extend the reasoning. Money isn't religion. No church needs money to function. Money isn't the press. It costs nothing to publish books, magazines, and newspapers. Money isn't assembly. No one ever pays rent on a meeting space. Here's the truth. The statists could repeal the entire First Amendment simply by forbidding anyone to spend money on speech, religion, press, or assembly. The slave cannot earn or spend as he or she chooses, but a free person can. Which do you want to be?
And apply cold water.
Well, that's just it. How is money not speech? Oh, you can speak as long as you don't spend money to do it. Well, then how do you buy airtime? But I mean, again, it's not about big rich people who have, jillions of dollars buying an election. They can always do that. This is about people who don't have jillions of dollars, who want to get together and pool their resources. That's what this enables. That's what money does. And if you curtail the spending on this, then you actually decrease their voices. So, James Wilson and Perry Willis, enjoy your shiny new Silver Cluon, and don't worry, you don't have to report it to the FEC. Bogosity.tv is a participant in the Amazon Services LLC Associates Program, an affiliate advertising program designed to provide a means for sites to earn advertising fees by advertising and linking to Amazon.com. Just clear your cookies and go to Amazon.bogosity.tv, or check the right-hand side of the podcast page for Amazon's best deals, including the deal of the day and limited-time lightning deals on all sorts of great products. So next time you buy online, go to Amazon.bogosity.tv. Bogosity.tv and all of its services are hosted at GoDaddy. I've been a satisfied GoDaddy customer for over 10 years now. Their prices are great, and their 24/7 support is second to none. So I'm happy to be able to give you this special offer. Just sign up for any new domain, web hosting, email, or many other services and get 35% off by typing in the code WOWNOBOGON. That's WOWNOBOGON. Because there's nothing bogus about these savings on quality internet service. Get your own .com with a personalized email address, or establish your online business in a snap, all for 35% off. Or check the right-hand side of the podcast page for special offers on GoDaddy products. Get great savings on quality internet services. Just go to GoDaddy.com and use the code WowNoBogon. And now let's gawk at this week's biggest Bogon emitter. And it goes to Adam Weinstein of Gawker.com, who wants to arrest climate change deniers.
Finger wagging.
Okay, so he says, quote, man-made climate change happens. Well, that's true, it happens. Man-made climate change kills a lot of people. Well, that's not really very solid. And he says it's going to kill a lot more. We have laws on the books to punish anyone whose lies contribute to people's deaths. It's time to punish the climate change liars.
Well, if we had property rights, we could punish people for violating them, polluting it.
Well, that's true. If you're pumping, CO2 or whatever into someone's property, then all of us with our property, we'd have an action against that company, and then they'd have to pay us. But apparently, no, the solution is for them to pay the government, and somehow that makes it work.
No, we are the government, remember?
Oh, right. Hey, I keep forgetting that. Kind of hard to remember when they're pulling you over, suspecting you of having marijuana just because you have a Colorado license plate and things like that.
Well, we are masochists.
Yeah. All right, but he claims there's a precedent for this. Because in Italy, 6 seismologists were convicted of manslaughter in connection with a 2009 earthquake that killed 309 people. You remember that story?
Yeah.
Yeah, we covered it a few times. This is his precedent. This is what he's going to for this. And he says, the scientists weren't convicted because they failed to predict an earthquake. Yes, they were! We went over this. That is exactly what happened. They were convicted because they didn't predict the earthquake. What he says was, quote, they were convened to study a series of tremors the week before the quake and tacitly signed off on a government official's public message that the situation looks favorable and residents should chill out with some wine. Well, what they really said was that tremors like this did not necessarily indicate that a big quake was coming. It could mean that, but there wasn't any more likelihood of a big quake coming than there was at any other time. And that was true. And the quake came and they got in trouble. They were convicted for failing to predict an earthquake. Deal with it, people. So yeah, this is his basis. He also says, quote, there is scientific skepticism and there is a malicious, profiteering, quietist agenda posturing as skepticism. There is uncertainty about whether man-made climate change can be stopped or reversed, and there is the body of purulent pundits, paid sponsors, and corporate grifters who exploit the smallest uncertainty at the edges of a settled science. Gee, project much?
All I hear is, smash capitalism, boo.
Well, the thing is, this actually might almost work if you were going against anti-vaxxers. Because you can directly show that anti-vaxxers convince people not to vaccinate, a bunch of people stop vaccinating, and then the stuff comes back. But even that would be iffy. As solid as that is, and as easy as that is to see, it would be very iffy to bring criminal charges against people like that. They brought civil charges against them, but really, really difficult to bring criminal trials in a case that's that clear. And he wants to do it with climate change.
Well, it's his pet project.
Yeah. Quote, but First Amendment rights have never been absolute. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. Okay, we covered that a while back. The whole fire in a crowded theater happened because the Supreme Court was looking for an excuse to back up the arresting of people who were protesting the draft in World War I. But that's no longer the criteria. The criteria on the limit of free speech rights is, does the speech directly lead to danger or a threat of danger, and is that threat imminent? That's the criteria. And he says, quote, you shouldn't be able to yell balderdash at 10,883 scientific journal articles a year, all saying the same thing. This is a problem, and we should take some preparations for when it becomes a bigger problem. Yes, you should. You absolutely should be able to yell balderdash at it. I mean, creationists yell balderdash at even more scientific journal articles backing up evolution, and we don't arrest them.
Yeah, I'm just gonna yell ballerdash at this guy. See if he convicts me.
Yeah, I mean, defending free speech means that you have to defend the speech of people who say things you don't like. That's what it means. That's what it means to be free.
Yeah, and if you let them speak, you know to avoid them.
Yeah, I mean, you just let it be taken care of in the marketplace for ideas. That's where we're winning the evolution argument. The court cases are just few and far between. It's pretty much been the marketplace of ideas that evolution just has so much evidence for it and such a high degree of confidence that you're able to do that and triumph. But if you don't think you have that, if you don't think that your idea is good enough to stand up to opposition, that's when you call for things like arresting people who say otherwise.
Yeah, isn't that kind of like belief and belief?
Yeah, pretty much, because if he honestly believed it, he shouldn't be afraid of these ideas. He shouldn't be afraid of dissent. He shouldn't be afraid of people standing up and saying balderdash to 10,883 scientific journal articles a year. So Adam Weinstein just has to be this week's biggest Bogon emitter. Do you want answers to creationist claims against evolution? Would you like to know more about evolution yourself, or even engage creationists more directly, with actual peer-reviewed sources to back you up? My book, How Evolution is Scientific, is designed to show the basics of evolutionary theory and how it is so well supported using the scientific method. It's impeccably sourced, with references to the actual scientific material, and is arranged using the creationists' own criteria of what is scientific. Using their own arguments against them, see how evolution is scientific, but creationism is not, based on observations, accurate predictions, logic, and evidence. Get answers to common creationist claims, and even a primer on abiogenesis, the start of all life. It's all in my book, How Evolution is Scientific, available at Amazon and on Kindle, EPUB, and PDF as well. Get How Evolution is Scientific and never be taken in by creationists again. And now it's time to mentally evict this week's Idiot Extraordinaire. That was very good. That was almost operatic. And this week, it's more stupid Google protesters.
More? You mean like the anarchists?
Well, you remember the ones before who were protesting Google actually sending buses to pick up their employees. Well, this is probably the same people from what's being said. But Kevin Rose used to be a host on the old Tech TV cable channel, and then he went on to create Dig, and now he's with Google Ventures. He has been the subject of the protest because apparently he lives in San Francisco, and I guess he's lived there for a long time. But protesters showed up at his home and posted on his door a letter which read, "Greetings, your neighbor at," and the address is redacted, "a man named Kevin Rose is a parasite. Perhaps not of you, but of us. This is why we are here, to reveal him for what he is. As a partner venture capitalist at Google Ventures, Kevin directs the flow of capital from Google into the tech startup bubble that is destroying San Francisco. The startups that he funds bring the swarms of young entrepreneurs that have ravaged the landscapes of San Francisco and Oakland. With each new tech corporation comes a wave of fresh techies who on average earn 4 times more than a normal service worker. We are the ones who serve them coffee, deliver them food, suck their penises, watch their kids, and mop their floors. Nearly all of them are just like Kevin Rose, and we are tired of this miserable and untenable situation."
So it's like the last one then?
Pretty much. I mean, first of all, who's forcing them to do any of those things? They can do business or not do business with them, however they see fit. But Rose was actually pretty much a gentleman about it. He made several tweets about it, and he talked about it on This Week in Tech. And one of the tweets wrote, quote, "That said, I did agree with them that we need to solve rising rents, keep the SF culture, and crack down on landlords booting folks out." Okay, so here's what's really happening with residences in San Francisco. The city government imposes hideous restrictions in new residential building. Anyone who's taken basic economics will tell you what happens as a result. Supply becomes artificially low, and prices go up. So after a while, people who work for tech firms are the only ones who can afford to come in and live there. But of course, when people look at it, they see ordinary people getting booted out and techies moving in, and they conclude that it's the techies that are kicking out the residents.
Seeing the unseen.
Yep. Well, and also correlation causation as well. They're looking at a result and saying that's the cause. When if they really wanted to do something about it, they go to the city of San Francisco and protest then and say, hey, why all these restrictions on new residential building?
Because that would require work and research.
Yeah.
Thinking.
So like I said, they all showed up to his house. He actually went out to talk to the protesters. And he actually pointed out to them when they were recording him and taking videos, he pointed out to them that they were using Android phones to do it. Android's a Google product. And one of them, he asked them what they were going to do with the video, and the reply was, put it on YouTube. And he said, you do realize the irony of that, don't you? Yeah, you gotta love it. So that just means these stupid protesters have to be this week's Idiot Extraordinaire! Well, that wraps up this If We Took the Bones Out, It Wouldn't Be Crunchy edition of the Bogosity podcast. Please visit the forums at Bogosity.tv, where you can read the show notes and join the discussion on these and other subjects. This podcast is free, but not free to produce, so please donate via PayPal or Bitcoin at the top of the Bogosity.tv website or down the right-hand side of the podcast page, and give generously to keep this podcast going. And if you'd like to contribute to the podcast, just send a question, statement, news article, or rant to podcast@Bogosity.tv. Put it in an audio file, and if it's good enough, it'll get played right in the podcast. Thank you for listening, and thanks again to Jacob Morris for joining me.
No problem.
Until next week, here's a quote from John Adams. I fear that in every assembly, members will obtain an influence by noise, not sense, by meanness, not greatness, by ignorance, not learning, by contracted hearts, not large souls. The Bogosity podcast is licensed under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 3.0 imported license. Bogosity. History is written by the winners, and so apparently is economics. That's why there's Liberty Classroom. Probably the best single learning resource for history and economics on the web, Liberty Classroom teaches U.S. history, Western Civ, and economics from actual university professors. There's lots of free material to get you started, including introductory lectures on all these subjects. And when you sign up, you'll get the full site's content for just $99 a year, less than the price of 2 cups of coffee a month. And if you type in the promo code Bogosity in all caps, you'll get your first year for just $88. Lectures are available in both video and audio format, so you can watch or listen to them on your computer, your phone or tablet, or in your car. Learn at your own pace about the subjects you're interested in and become a more effective debater. You'll also get access to lots of supplemental materials and even the professors themselves via the discussion forum and even live video chats. Inform yourself against the myths and propaganda of our society. Visit libertyclassroom.com.
I'll be back.